Welcome back to the BlackTrack, where I do commentary and review on movies with an all-black cast, or at least a black lead. It's that time of year again. When it starts getting cold, you get together with family and you start eating good food. But you definitely don't start watching Black Thanksgiving movies, because I'm just now realizing that there just aren't that many black movies based on Thanksgiving, or even food for that matter. So let's just stick with the family aspect, because that's what today's movie Crooklyn is all about. Released in 1994, Crooklyn is a Spike Lee joint, and it's probably one of his most tame and heartfelt movies. Well, when compared to the rest of his catalog. Spike directed Crooklyn right after the Malcolm X movie, and I'm sure he thought to himself that he'd scared Hollywood enough with that movie, so it might be best to make something a little lighter. Crooklyn is loosely based on Spike Lee's own life growing up in Brooklyn with his 4 brothers and 1 sister. As a matter of fact, the one sister, Joy Lee, co-wrote the script for Crooklyn, along with another one of her brothers. I actually showed Joy in my BlackTrack for school days. She was one of the girls in Rachel's crew. It makes sense that it was written by her because Crooklyn primarily tells the story from the perspective of the one sister in the family named Troy, played by Zelda Harris. The movie really doesn't have much of a central narrative, but that's not uncommon for Spike Lee films. The point of it is to just make you feel good and nostalgic about childhood. The little bit of story that is there is just random moments in the lives of the Carmichael family, led by the father Woody, played by the great Delroy Lindo, and the mother Carolyn, played by the equally great Alfre Woodard. The 2 actors are surprisingly appearing on the BlackTrack for the first time. Can a movie about a family of kids growing up in New York appeal to a guy like me who grew up in the South? Let's BlackTrack and find out. Right off top, I love the intro to this movie. It's just black and brown people going about their everyday business, enjoying life. Kids playing games, adults doing what they do, all while people make the world go round by the stylistics plays in the background. It's kind of like the intro to the movie Love Jones, and it's already making me miss my childhood, and the movie hasn't even started yet. Crooklyn takes place in the 70s, and even though I didn't grow up in the 70s, the movie still has a weird way of making you relate to it. I guess all childhoods are just universal like that. I also didn't grow up with any siblings, but I had a bunch of cousins, and ironically, at first it was 4 boys and 1 girl. So this dinner scene really hits home for me. I especially like the fact that you can tell the unique characteristics of each child without the movie having to narrate it to you. Troy is a bit of a tomboy. I mean, her nickname is Troy for God's sakes. And she bosses around most of the other boys in the neighborhood.
Fresh squeeze lemonade. Drink me. Oh, look who went down with that chicken. Oh, what's she doing? Bring that boy, Troy the boy. And stay out.
Oh man, turning down neighborhood kids who beg? This definitely isn't the South. Where's Big Mama when you need her? I mean, come on, look at all that food. There's no way y'all gonna eat all that. Share some of that diabetes with somebody else. This bad karma definitely won't come back to bite them in the ass later, right? There's the accident-prone brother. We can tell because of the cast that he wears. And then there's the funny brother, Wendell. We can tell because he's always cracking jokes. I wonder who Clinton, the brother with the thick glasses and the Knicks jersey, is supposed to be, because I can't for the life of me decide which one is supposed to be Spike Lee. At times, Crooklyn is too real, but I appreciate it, because even though this was kind of marketed as a feel-good family comedy, it doesn't shy away from realistic aspects of childhood, even mild trauma. Troy sleepwalks and pees in random spots, which is never addressed by the way, and Carolyn comes home and physically assaults the kids for not cleaning up, even openly embarrassing her sons.
Get up, all you little penis at attention, get up, boy, now.
Now for somebody who didn't have this kind of upbringing, all of this might seem a little outrageous, but to me, it's just normal everyday stuff in black households. Is that bad? Much of Crooklyn is just mundane random stuff in the neighborhood. The movie at times feels like we're reliving somebody's memories rather than telling a story. It's amazing how accurately it captures the vibe though, and I can't stress enough how much watching this makes it feel like you're stepping into a time machine. The young girls in the neighborhood argue with each other to the brink of nearly fighting, only to immediately drop the argument and play jump rope like nothing ever happened. The neighborhood boys terrorize them, of course, and there's a constant threat of the neighborhood addicts trying to steal money from them. The movie says they're addicted to huffing glue, but come on. I guess heroin was too much for a PG-13. Hey, we all did the DARE program in elementary school. We can handle it. One of the addicts is played by Spike Lee himself, because you know he gonna find a spot somewhere. But do you want to laugh real quick? His partner is called Right Hand Man. You want to know why?
enough, man. Got to.
They could have done an entire movie on the neighbors alone, because I swear, they are more interesting than the kids. They got gossiping ladies, a Puerto Rican singer who thinks he's got what it takes. Hey, let's hear what he sounds like. He might be another Ricky Martin.
Oh, if I could, I'd like to be a great big movie star.
Nah, more like J-Lo. There's also a war veteran named Vic, who's played by Isaiah Washington, who I last talked about on Love Jones. For whatever reason, everybody's on his nuts. Look how much Bokeem Woodbine is sweating and all in his presence. I don't know if he's terrified of him or in heat. The weirdest of these characters is Tony Eyes, a neighbor with a ton of dogs and a tendency to have karaoke concerts at odd hours. He's played by David Patrick Kelly, an actor who's been in several Spike Lee movies, and you may not recognize him, but he was also the main villain from The Warriors. The Warriors was his first movie, and probably his most iconic role, even though he's been in a ton of stuff and is still acting to this day. Speaking of people playing music at odd hours, several years ago, I used to live upstairs from a guy who played Norah Jones' Don't Know Why on repeat for 2 weeks straight. To this day, I can't stand to listen to that song because of that, and I used to like that song. Tony Eyes reminded me of that for some reason. Kind of like how Crooklyn just reminded me of the time that I couldn't eat squash that was cooked for me and had to miss out on Kool-Aid because I didn't finish my dinner. In the case of the movie, it's cake that one of the Carmichael kids are missing out on because he's refusing to eat the black-eyed peas. I didn't have quite the reaction he did to it though. It wasn't that nasty. The Carmichael kids are bad, and I know they say you shouldn't call kids bad. I mean, they're not Bebe's kids bad or anything, but they're still pretty bad. Aside from the way they talk to their moms and the fact that they never listen, they even throw trash on Tony's front porch. Now poor Vic gotta defend them when Tony gets belligerent about it. Man, why y'all let Vic get involved in this? Y'all know he ain't been right since he been back from Nam. He's seen some things and some stuff. Wow, this scene looks familiar. This is becoming a Thanksgiving tradition. A lot of what the Lee kids did in real life was left out of the movie, like blowing up the kitchen oven. No wonder Delroy Lindo almost backed out of the movie due to having to work with kids. Now this is absolutely ridiculous. I can't believe Spike Lee would put something so egregious in his movie. And then he got the nerve to have a little girl witnessing this. Unacceptable. I mean, there's just no reason to have this much damn product placement in a movie. At least we get a cameo from RuPaul to take our attention away from it. Because of his random and disjointed nature, Crooklyn doesn't make it obvious that Woody and Carolyn are going through some marriage trouble. You see, Woody is a struggling artist who's chasing his dreams despite it being rough on the finances. He's supposed to be just like Spike Lee's real father, who is also a musician. Although, I don't think he was struggling, seeing as though he composed a lot of music for Spike's movies. The financial situation leads to an argument with Carolyn. Then that transitions to an altercation with young Spike. Then that leads to an all-out Royal Rumble with the whole family that leads to Carolyn hurting her ankle and putting Woody out of the house. How the hell did we get here? These are the parts of the movie that I feel like Lee expects us to just accept as the way things are, with no build-up or catalyst for why it's happening. They were fine in every scene leading up to this, then all of a sudden, Woody is out on the streets. It's like the Lees forgot that we weren't a part of that family. We have no idea what went on in that house. He pretty much comes right back right after a short montage, but it's not a musical montage, so it's not even worth talking about. Surprisingly, Woody's absence affects Troy the most, or unsurprisingly I guess, since she's the main character and all. She starts stealing from everybody, from the local grocery store to her own brothers. But her reason for stealing is the most hilarious part. See, since Woody is gone, Carolyn had to borrow food stamps to take care of the kids, and Troy doesn't want people to make fun of her for bringing food stamps to the store. Oh, you mean how you made fun of those kids who just wanted food at the beginning of the movie? Hey, that karma might not come when you want it, but it's always on time. The hits keep on coming too, and not from Woody's music, because the light man came through, and I'm guessing he doesn't take food stamps because he got it looking like the Temple of Doom in here. I'm glad he did turn the power off though, because had he not, I wouldn't have even realized that Vic was living in their house this entire time. Apparently, they rented out one of the top rooms to him. Exactly how big is this house? So he's been here and been a witness to all this nonsense, and the whole time just kept to himself? No wonder he had such a short fuse. He's probably stressed the f*** out. Dang, get it together, West Indian Archie. Funny story. There's a scene in this movie where Woody is having a concert and he wants Carolyn and all the kids to go and support him. In the movie, they all go, despite young Spike Lee protesting. Well, this was actually a true moment in the Lee house, but when faced with missing a Knicks playoff game or going to his father's concert, well, let's just say that the real Spike Lee had a hell of a time at that Knicks game. Savage. Whenever you acted up as a child and got to be too much to handle, what was every parent's last resort? That's right, send you to live with somebody else, as if that somehow changes things. In Troy's case though, they sent her all the way down to the south to stay with an auntie and uncle. I think I would take my chances with the belt than to be that far away from home. This might be the most divisive part of the film for people, for various reasons. The first being that many people feel like this whole section in the south just derails the entire movie. It lasts well over 20 minutes, and some say it could have been cut from the movie entirely, where others say it just should have been shorter. I fall in the cut entirely camp, because I don't think it adds nearly as much to the story to justify its existence. Secondly, Spike Lee made the baffling decision to film these scenes with an anamorphic lens, giving it the tight appearance that had many people thinking that something was wrong with either the movie theater screen or their TV. I was one of them, because I completely forgot he did this, and when I watched this movie back, I thought I got finessed with the bootleg. I think the consensus on this decision is universally negative, but he didn't do it for no reason. The idea was to convey the feelings Troy was having of isolation and disorientation from being in a new and unfamiliar place. I always just thought it was trying to say something bad about the South. Like because she's there, the budget took a dive or something? I don't know, I'm overthinking it. Anyway, the southern parts are full of your usual southern stereotypes. Troy's aunt is super religious and shows evidence of colorism with the way she idolizes her light-skinned adopted daughter Viola. Her uncle is aloof and more or less ignores everything that's happening around him so as not to upset his wife. And Troy is basically forced to become a lady, a good southern lady, complete with hot-combed hair, lessons about proper manners, and pretty dresses. Cause I do declare that's all southern women care about. The only reason to watch these scenes is because of the dog Queenie. You see, the auntie loves the dog, almost more than she loves the kids. And when Queenie goes missing one day, nobody, and yet everybody is a suspect simultaneously, because everybody else pretty much hates the dog. When it's discovered what actually happened to the dog, it's without question the best part of the movie. The way it pops out of that couch, I'm crying, man. Just fast forward the South scenes to this part. You ain't missing nothing, trust me. Troy comes back a new girl and is picked up by another uncle played by Dr. Hugo himself, or Vondi Curtis Hall if you want to use real names or whatnot, and her aunt who's played by writer Joy Lee making a cameo. See, here's the problem with improper time management in movies, because all that time spent in the South could have been dedicated to the fact that Carolyn is sick with cancer. It comes out of nowhere, and it starts to feel like the movie is racing to the finish line when it really didn't have to. One scene she has cancer, and then a few minutes later, they're planning her funeral. Woody and the kids realize that Carolyn pretty much held the family together, and in her absence, they're forced to grow up and come together as a family to help manage the household. It's a nice sentiment, but it ain't earned at all. It just feels like the movie needed a catalyst for Troy to finally overcome all her issues. But she's 9. There's way more she's gonna have to overcome after this. And wait a minute, does this mean that Woody is going to have to finally get a real job to take care of the kids? Actually, that's not even the most important question. What if there was a Knicks game the same day as the funeral? What would little Spike have done? Let's get to the grade. Crooklyn was originally envisioned as a TV show, and I can see that working a lot better than a movie. I once read in a book about screenwriting that a story about that one time you went to summer camp and did that one cool thing may seem cool to you, but doesn't always translate to a good movie. I feel like that sums up Crooklyn rather nicely. It was an obvious nostalgic trip for the Lee family about their love of growing up in Brooklyn. I mean, I feel them. They put a lot of love and effort into the movie, and I got to give them props for making you feel like you're living in 1970s Brooklyn. It really does make you yearn for a time when things were simpler and you had limitless imagination without a care in the world. Unfortunately, the narrative just doesn't land, and between that and the pacing issues, all you're left with is a film about moments. When you talk to people about this movie, who actually like this movie, they can tell you about all the random parts in the film that they love, like Queenie popping out of the couch and Carolyn dying, but they can't actually tell you what it's about. I'll admit, it probably resonates far more with people who are from the North and grew up during the 70s, so if that applies to you, I can totally see how this is considered a cult classic. But as for me, my grade for Crooklyn is a C+. It's obvious Spike Lee wanted to make a fun, safe movie, and you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. And that's it for this episode of the BlackTrack. As usual, let me know what you thought about the movie Crooklyn in the comments below. Also, if you have any movie requests, please post them on the Black Media Man Cave Twitter page. It's just easier for me to keep track of them there. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and tell your friends about my channel. And until next time, I'll holler at you.